The moment Jake Morrison stepped into the throne chamber, he felt the universe tilt. Stars moved across the walls like living witnesses. And at the center of it all, the alien queen watched him as if she already knew every secret he'd ever kept. He had expected interrogation, maybe accusation. Instead, she asked a single question that froze him in place. Do you know why your name echoes across my empire? And the truth waiting behind that question? It would turn a simple human lieutenant into something he never imagined. That if you're already hooked, you're in the right place. Go ahead, tap like, hit subscribe, and share this video with anyone who loves a good sci-fi twist. It helps the channel grow. And trust me, the story you're about to hear gets wilder the deeper we go. Jake Morrison had survived pirate ambushes, plague-ridden battlefields, and ship systems that like to shut down at the worst possible times. But nothing had prepared him for the message that arrived while he was cleaning his rifle on the USS Liberty. One moment the ship was quiet, humming gently like it always did during long patrol weeks. The next, Amy Chun, the comms officer, appeared at his bunk with her hands shaking around a data pad. Jake, you need to see this, she whispered. He thought she was joking at first. Maybe another crew prank to break the boredom. But the second he saw the swirling, liquid-looking alien script across the top of the screen, his stomach flipped. This was not human command. This was Royal Kethran code, the kind used only by their highest leadership. Jake had seen it before during interspecies briefings, but never like this, never with his name attached to it. He tapped the translator. The message unfolded in sharp, simple English, and each word hit harder than the last. By command of Her Imperial Majesty Queen Zelnara of the Kethran Empire, Lieutenant Jake Morrison is hereby summoned for private audience. Transport arriving in 6 hours. This summons cannot be refused. Jake blinked. Once. Twice. He read it again. Then again. Private audience, he muttered. With an alien queen? Me? Amy let out a nervous breath. Jake, the codes are real. This isn't a mistake. No one aboard the Liberty had any idea why an alien monarch wanted a low-ranking human lieutenant. Word spread so fast it felt like the whole ship was staring at him within minutes. When Captain Lisa Hayes finally pushed through the crowd, Jake braced himself for a reprimand, for some explanation, anything. Instead, she looked almost worried. Morrison, my ready room. Now. Inside. She shut the door and studied him for a long moment, like she expected him to suddenly confess he'd secretly married an alien princess. Jake, she finally said, lowering her voice, in 20 years, I've never seen anything like this. Do you have any idea why the Queen herself would summon you? No, ma'am. None. Though his mind automatically pulled up the one memory he tried not to think about, Proxima Station, the day everything went wrong and somehow still ended right. Captain Hayes noticed his hesitation. Proxima, she said quietly. Tell me again. All of it. He explained, slowly, reluctantly, the chaos of that battle. The plague-infected ships closing in on transports stuffed with civilians. The Ranger torn apart, half the crew dead, the engines screaming in protest. And that final, reckless decision. He rammed the plague ship. He didn't do it to be a hero. He did it because there was no other way to buy those civilians the seconds they needed to escape. He barely survived. 43 of his crew didn't. Captain Hayes listened in silence. When he finished, she sat back, expression unreadable. And you think the Queen's summons might be connected to that? I don't know, Jake said. Maybe. But the Kethrans had their own ships there. Why would they care about a human lieutenant's split-second decision? Before Hayes could respond, her desk chimed sharply. Captain, came the bridge officer's tense voice, an alien vessel is approaching. Confirmed Kethran royal signatures. Captain Hayes stood immediately. They're early. She turned to Jake. Pack what you need. Dress uniform included. Jake tried to laugh, but his throat didn't let him. 6 hours later, Jake stood in the docking bay with half the crew watching, whispering, wondering. The alien transport descended like a piece of carved starlight, its crystalline hull glowing with shifting blues and emeralds. No human ship looked anything like it. 2 Kethran guards stepped out, tall, granite-skinned, four-armed, impossibly graceful. Their presence alone made the air feel heavier. One bowed slightly. "Lieutenant Morrison, I'm Commander Rexdell. Her Majesty awaits." If Jake had any lingering hope this was a misunderstanding, it evaporated right then. He glanced at Captain Hayes. She gave him a firm nod, steady, commanding, but with just enough softness to say, "Come back alive. Represent humanity well, Morrison." Jake stepped onto the alien ship, and the doors closed behind him like a soft sigh, cutting off the familiar world he'd always known. The inside of the Kethran transport felt alive. The walls pulsed gently with bioluminescent veins, and the chairs seemed grown rather than manufactured. The air smelled faintly of ocean breeze and something floral he couldn't name. Rexdell gestured. "Please sit. It will be 6 hours to Her Majesty's flagship." Jake sat, trying not to look nervous, even though his heart was racing like a shuttle at launch. He cleared his throat. "Commander, why does the Queen want to see me?" Rexdell's forearms shifted in what Jake recognized as a gesture of respect. "I'm not permitted to say, but know this. Her Majesty does not extend such summons lightly." Comforting. Not all. A smaller Kethran entered, robes flowing like liquid metal. "I am Healer Mortex. I will ensure your comfort." Jake gave a tired smile. "I'm okay. Mostly." Mortex tilted his head. "Humans often say they are okay when they are not." Jake let out a shaky laugh. "You've been talking to the right humans." Still, the aliens treated him with surprising kindness, bringing food, water, strange tea that calmed his nerves more than he wanted to admit. They asked him about Earth, about human customs, about the plague wars. But whenever Jake asked about the Queen, their expressions shifted. Respectful, somber, almost reverent. "Her Majesty is wise," Rexdell said, "and she sees farther than any of us." Cryptic, not helpful. The hours passed slowly, too slowly. Eventually, Rexdell motioned him to the window. "There," he said, and Jake saw it. A silhouette so massive it blocked distant starlight. A structure not built, but sculpted from crystal and light. Spires stretching kilometers. Ships, dozens, maybe hundreds, circling it like planets around a star. "The Eternal Dawn," Rexdell said. "Her Majesty's royal fortress." Jake had seen megastructures before. Space stations, carriers, even floating cities. But this made them look like toys. As the transport glided toward it, Jake felt smaller with every passing moment. Whatever waited for him inside that shimmering palace, it was bigger than anything he had prepared for. Much bigger. And somehow, deep down, he knew this meeting wasn't about punishment. It wasn't about diplomacy. It wasn't even about him. It was about something larger, something history would remember, something humanity didn't yet understand. Jake swallowed hard as the docking clamps locked in place. "Lieutenant Morrison," Rexdell said gently, "prepare yourself. Your life is about to change." Jake had no idea how right he was. Jake had seen beauty in space before. Nebula storms swirling like oceans of fire, rings of frozen crystals around dead planets, colonies lit like beads across the dark. But nothing prepared him for the inside of the Eternal Dawn. The doors of the alien transport slid open with a soft, musical sound. Jake stepped into a corridor that looked more like the inside of a gemstone than a ship. The walls shimmered with shifting colors, like starlight trapped under glass. Beneath his boots, the floor hummed faintly, warm enough that it felt almost alive. 2 palace guards were waiting, taller than the soldiers who had escorted him so far, their armor layered with symbols that pulsed faint blue whenever they moved. One stepped forward. "I am Captain Zark of the Palace Guard. Welcome, Lieutenant Morrison. Her Majesty has arranged quarters for you." Jake tried to nod politely, even though he suddenly felt like a kid being summoned to the principal's office. Except the principal ruled an empire and lived in a spaceborne cathedral the size of a small moon. Zark turned, and Jake followed, doing his best not to look like a wide-eyed tourist. But how could he not stare? Every few steps the walls shifted from crystal to something like clear metal, revealing the vast interior of the Eternal Dawn. It was a city, not a metaphorical city, an actual one. Multiple levels spiraled upward, connected by bridges that seemed to grow organically from the architecture. He saw alien families browsing markets, soldiers in ceremonial armor marching in formation, floating platforms carrying crates of shimmering technology he couldn't begin to identify, and every species he'd ever met, and many he'd never seen, moved together as though this place belonged to all of them. Zark noticed him staring. You humans call these megacities. For us, the Eternal Dawn is home. Nearly 1 million citizens, all serving the Empire in one way or another. Jake let out a low breath. This entire thing, all of it, is a palace? One wing of it, Zark corrected gently. The Queen's wing. Jake decided it was better not to ask how many wings there were. As they walked, he caught something else he didn't expect. People stared at him. Not hostilely, not fearfully, curiously. Whispering, pointing. A few even bowed. Jake nearly stumbled. Captain? Why are they looking at me like that? Word traveled quickly, Zark said. Her Majesty rarely requests a private audience with outsiders. That you were summoned personally suggests importance. I'm just a lieutenant, Jake muttered. Zark gave him a look that was almost amused. Perhaps that is changing. The lift they entered made Jake grip the railing immediately. Not because it moved fast, but because it didn't move like any lift should. It drifted sideways, diagonally, spiraled upward, then glided forward again as though gravity itself bowed to the Queen's architecture. Through its transparent walls, Jake saw gardens that defied physics, plants floating in spheres of controlled starlight, waterfalls suspended mid-air with no visible source. Someone had designed this place with a sense of imagination that made human engineering look painfully literal. Zark spoke softly, almost reverently. Humanity builds machines that work. We build machines that inspire. Her Majesty believes a palace should reflect the heart of the Empire. Jake nodded, though he couldn't stop thinking. If the palace looks like this, what will the throne room look like? The lift stopped. Another corridor. More transparent walls. Except this time, Jake could see space directly outside. Dozens of Kethran warships, sleek, sharp, glittering like blades forged from constellations. Among them drifted human vessels, small but sturdy, posted respectfully near the palace's perimeter. Jake felt an unexpected emotion. Pride. Your people fought beside ours for 3 years, Zark said suddenly, as if reading his thoughts. That battle changed everything. Humans proved difficult to predict and impossible to ignore. Jake swallowed. We were just doing our best to survive. Yes, Zark said, and more. Jake's quarters were more like a royal guest suite than anything designed for a soldier. The door opened automatically, revealing a room bathed in warm, golden light. The bed looked like it had been carved from a single massive flower. The ceiling projected a soft view of a nearby star cluster. The air smelled faintly of something floral and calming. This is too much, Jake said immediately. It is customary, Zark replied. Her Majesty insists all honored guests be treated according to their worth. Jake rubbed the back of his neck. I still don't know why I'm here. Her Majesty will tell you when she chooses. Zark paused at the doorway. In the meantime, rest. Eat. Prepare. Jake nodded, though relaxing felt about as likely as surviving in space without a suit. Alone, Jake wandered the suite. The table formed plates of food when he asked, human food, perfectly replicated. The sink produced water at whatever temperature he named. The closet contained clothing woven from a material that felt like starlight and silk combined. Even the mirror adjusted its brightness automatically when he stepped in front of it. Every detail whispered a single message. The Queen wanted him comfortable. The Queen wanted him ready. The Queen wanted him here. He just didn't know why. As he sat at the window, watching alien ships drift like guardians around the massive palace, Jake replayed the possibilities. Was this political? A misunderstanding? A reward? A message? A trap? The Ketherans weren't known for deception. But then again, queens didn't summon lieutenants for small talk. He was still deep in thought when a soft chime echoed through his room. The door slid open, not with the authority of Zark's entrance, but with a quiet, flowing grace. An alien stepped inside, tall, robed in shimmering silver, skin marked with patterns that looked like constellations. His movements were slow, deliberate, ancient. "Lieutenant Morrison," he said with a voice like deep stone. "I'm the Lord Chancellor, advisor to Her Majesty." Jake stood immediately. "Sir, I am here," the Chancellor said, "to prepare you for tomorrow." "Tomorrow," Jake repeated. "So, the audience is at dawn cycle," the Chancellor confirmed. "The Queen has reviewed your record. She has questions, important questions." Jake nodded, unsure if he should ask his own. Before he could speak, the Chancellor continued. "You must understand, Her Majesty sees far beyond simple battles and victories. She seeks meaning, connection, truth, and she believes you possess something significant." Jake frowned slightly. "Sir, with all due respect, I'm just a normal." "No," the Chancellor said, raising one hand. "Not normal. You are human." As if that explained everything. He stepped closer, studying Jake with eyes that seemed to see through walls and flesh and nerves. "Tomorrow," he said quietly, "you will learn why the Queen summoned you. And I warn you, Lieutenant, what she reveals may challenge the history you believe and the future you expect." With that, he turned and left, the door closing silently behind him. Jake stood alone, heart hammering. He knew two things. The Queen wanted answers, and she believed he had them. He just didn't know which terrified him more. When dawn cycle arrived on the eternal dawn, it didn't come with sunlight. It came with a soft, rising glow through the palace walls, like the ship itself was waking from a gentle dream. Jake had barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he imagined the Queen's looming figure, her unreadable black eyes, and the question he feared most: why him? He dressed slowly in the alien formal wear laid out for him. It wasn't a uniform, but it felt ceremonial, woven from material that shimmered when he moved, catching starlight from the windows. Somehow it fit perfectly, as if tailored for him. A chime. The door opened. Captain Zark stood waiting, posture rigid, gaze steady. "Lieutenant Morrison, Her Majesty is ready." Jake inhaled sharply, nodded, and stepped forward. The walk to the throne room felt longer this time. The corridors were more ornate, lined with carvings that showed the Ketharan rise from scattered tribes to an interstellar empire. He saw scenes of ancient warriors, scientists discovering early engines, and queens from centuries past wielding authority with terrifying grace. The aliens in the hall watched Jake pass with a mix of curiosity and expectation. Some bowed slightly. One placed a hand over his heart in a gesture Jake didn't understand. Zark didn't explain, and Jake didn't have the nerve to ask. At last they arrived at a broad chamber where several dignitaries waited in silence. The Lord Chancellor stood at the center, robes glimmering like liquid silver. "Lieutenant," he said, "Her Majesty will receive you now." Jake followed as massive doors, 20 feet tall and covered in shifting engravings, opened without a sound. He stepped into darkness. No, into space. For a moment, Jake genuinely believed he had stepped outside the ship. The throne room was a perfect sphere, and its walls projected the universe in real time. Stars drifted. Nebulae glowed in distant colors. Planets rotated slowly, painting the room in blues, purples, and golds. It wasn't a room. It was the universe itself, folded around the Queen. Queen Zelnara sat upon a throne grown from crystal, alive with flowing patterns of light. She was taller than any Ketharan Jake had met, 8 feet at least, regal and impossibly still. Her skin shifted in hue with the ambient starlight, deep violet becoming gold, then soft sapphire. But it was her eyes, black, reflective, ancient, that froze him in his tracks. "Lieutenant Jake Morrison," she said, her voice filling the chamber though she spoke gently. "Approach." Jake walked forward until he stood 10 feet away, then bowed as instructed. "Your Majesty." With a flick of her hand, the guards and the Chancellor melted away into the shadows, leaving him alone with the Queen in the sphere of stars. She studied him quietly. It felt as though she were reading his mind, peeling away every fear, every memory. "Tell me, Lieutenant," she said softly, "what makes humanity special among the stars?" Jake blinked. That wasn't the question he expected. Well, I think humans don't like giving up, even when we should, even when it seems impossible. The Queen tilted her head slightly. Is this stubbornness a strength or a flaw? Both, Jake answered honestly. It keeps us alive. It also gets us into trouble. A faint smile, barely visible, touched her lips. A truthful answer. She lifted her hand, and the stars on the chamber walls shifted. Images appeared, scenes of the Plague War, ships aflame, civilians fleeing, soldiers fighting in a haze of desperation. Jake's shoulders tensed. The memories were too vivid, too raw. When the plague consumed entire fleets, Queen Zelnara said, my advisors urged me to seal our borders, to let the infection burn through human space and die out. Jake's heart tightened painfully. He didn't want to imagine that alternate outcome. But then, she continued, her voice softening, I saw something that changed everything. The scene changed. Jake saw the USS Ranger, his old ship, damaged, limping, smoke trailing behind it as plague vessels closed in. He felt the old tightness in his chest return full force. That was the day at Proxima, he whispered. Yes, the Queen said, but you have never seen it from my eyes. The viewpoint zoomed, showing the evacuation convoy ahead. Thousands of civilians, human and Catherine alike, packed into transports desperately trying to reach the jump point. And aboard one of those transports, she said softly, was someone very precious. Jake frowned. Your Majesty, who? The projection shifted again. A human woman appeared, short dark hair, stern expression, wearing a research team uniform. Jake felt a chill crawl through his spine. That's Dr. Morgan Kane, he said. She led the medical team that developed the cure. The Queen nodded. Her human name was Morgan Kane, she confirmed. But her true name is Princess Morgana, my daughter. Jake's blood turned cold. He stared at the image, then at the Queen. I didn't know. The records. Her identity was hidden for her safety, the Queen said. Very few, even in your command, knew the truth. Jake swallowed hard. His heart hammered painfully. The Queen stepped down from her throne and approached him with slow, graceful steps. When the plague ships breached our defenses, even 3 of our cruisers failed to hold them back. My daughter's transport was moments from destruction. The wall projection replayed the scene. The plague flagship closing in, engines burning, weapons hot. And then the Queen said, your dying ship. Engines failing, weapons gone, captain dead, turned toward the enemy. Jake watched in silence as the video showed the Ranger accelerating, pushing its last reserves into one final suicidal charge. You did not know who was aboard those transports, the Queen said. You did not know my daughter was among them. Jake nodded slightly, throat tight. No, Your Majesty. I was just trying to buy them time. Anyone would have. No, Queen Zelnara said sharply, cutting him off. Not anyone. I have studied thousands of battles. Very few would have done what you did. She raised her hand. The chamber dimmed. A new object materialized within a crystalline alcove near her throne. A radiant crystal heart, glowing from within like captured starlight, swirling in slow motion. This, the Queen said, is a heart of Zelmoth. Jake stared. It pulsed gently, like it was alive. For 3,000 years, these hearts have been forged only for members of the royal bloodline, those who gave everything for the Empire. The Queen lifted the crystal with both lower hands, holding it with reverence. Only 7 hearts exist. Each one marks the greatest sacrifice of an age. She stepped toward Jake, holding the glowing heart. And now, I offer the 8th, the first ever to a human. Jake felt all breath leave his lungs. Your Majesty, no, I can't accept that. I didn't do anything special. I was just. You saved my daughter, the Queen said, voice trembling for the first time. You saved the research team that cured the plague. You saved 2 civilizations without knowing it. If you are not worthy, then no one is. She placed the glowing heart into his shaking hands. Warmth spread instantly through him, gentle, powerful, ancient. From this moment, Queen Zelnara declared, you are no longer merely Lieutenant Morrison. The chamber grew brighter, almost blinding. You are now Honorary Prince Jake Morrison, savior of the royal line." Jake stared at her in stunned silence. What am I supposed to do now?" he whispered. The queen smiled softly. "Now, you carry the truth, and you prepare for what your destiny has already begun." The heart of Zelmoth pulsed in Jake's hands like it contained a piece of a living star. Warm, steady, ancient. Every swirl of light inside, it felt like something whispering across centuries, as if the crystal itself recognized him. He couldn't speak, could barely breathe. The queen, this towering, regal presence who commanded 1,000 worlds, stood before him with genuine softness in her eyes. "Rise, Prince Jake Morrison," she said gently. "Prince." The word hit him harder than any impact he'd taken in battle. He wasn't royalty on Earth. He barely felt like a hero in the fleet. Yet here he was, holding an honor older than human civilization. He lifted the crystal slightly. "Your Majesty, I still don't understand." "Why me?" She stepped close enough that he could see the golden reflections dancing across her purple skin. "Because," she said, "you did what countless strategists, commanders, and kings throughout history refused to do. You sacrificed everything, not for glory, not for reward, but because it was right." Her gaze softened. "And because you saved my daughter. That alone makes you family." Jake had no idea what to say. He wanted to tell her he didn't deserve this, that he wasn't some legend, that he'd acted out of fear and instinct as much as courage. But the queen had a way of looking at him that dissolved every argument. Instead, he whispered, "I'm honored truly, but I'm loyal to my people. My duty is to the human fleet. And so it shall remain," the queen said. "This honor does not bind you to our empire. It binds our empire to you." She motioned with a graceful sweep of her upper hands. Suddenly the chamber brightened, shimmering with gold as figures stepped out from the shadows. Dignitaries, commanders, nobles. They formed a circle around Jake, bowing not with fear, but profound respect. The queen raised her voice, not loudly, but with a resonance that filled every corner of the star sphere. "Citizens of the Kethran Empire," she declared, "behold the bearer of the 8th heart of Zelmoth, the savior of the royal line. Let it be known throughout our worlds and our allies' worlds that humanity has produced a hero worthy of our highest honor." Jake felt heat crawl up his neck. He wasn't used to this. Praise like this felt too big, too heavy. He wasn't a commander. He wasn't a myth. He was just Jake Morrison, kid from a mining colony, average grades, stubborn streak a mile wide. But as he looked around, he saw something unmistakable. He wasn't just being honored. He was being trusted. Trusted by an entire empire. The queen touched the crystal gently where it rested in his hands. "You carry this not as a burden," she said softly, "but as a reminder. That one human's courage changed the course of history." A deep, ceremonial tone filled the chamber, a low hum like the vibration of a giant stringed instrument. The queen's attendants stepped back into place. The ceremony had ended, but Jake sensed there was more. Sure enough, as the others drifted away, the queen motioned for him to walk with her. They moved to a balcony that looked out into the palace interior. From there, Jake could see the entire megastructure, ships entering and leaving, markets glowing beneath translucent floors, alien families strolling through zero-gravity parks suspended between architectural spires. "You changed more than one life," Queen Zelnara said quietly. "You changed the future of our two peoples." Jake exhaled. "Your Majesty, I never wanted attention. I just wanted to save those civilians. And that," she said, "is why you earned it." They stood in silence for a long moment. Starlight washed over the balcony, giving their silhouettes a soft glow. There was something almost peaceful about it. "Your Majesty," Jake finally said, "what happens next? With me? With our alliance?" She clasped two of her hands behind her back. "What happens next," she said, "is unity. Cooperation, strength. Our peoples fought separately before, but now they will stand together. And you will be the symbol of that bond." Jake's heart tightened. A symbol, a bridge, a living connection between civilizations. He was no diplomat, no politician, but he felt the weight and the privilege of the roll settling into his bones. The queen turned to him. "You will return to your ship," she continued. "You will continue your duties. But everywhere you go, the heart of Zelmoth will speak for you. Doors will open, dialogues will deepen. And when the time comes for humanity to face challenges greater than the plague," she paused, "you will be the one who reminds them what courage looks like." Jake looked down at the glowing crystal. "I'll do my best," he whispered, "but I'm no legend." The queen smiled, warm, knowing. "Legends never believe they are legends," she said. "That is how they become one." The journey back through the palace felt surreal. Guards who had barely acknowledged him earlier now lowered their weapons in respect. Civilians bowed. Alien children stared with wide, curious eyes. Jake tried to ignore the growing pressure in his chest, the strange mixture of pride, fear, and responsibility. Commander Rexdale was waiting at the docking bay. "Prince Morrison," he said with a deep bow, "your transport is ready." Jake winced. Can we stick to Lieutenant? At least for now." Rexdale's 4 eyes blinked with amusement. "As you wish, but many will not." Jake climbed aboard the transport. As the doors closed, he caught one more glimpse of the Queen standing at the far end of the bay, silent, regal, her eyes following him as the transport drifted away. Hours later, the Liberty appeared through the viewport, small, sturdy, familiar. His home, his crew, his life before all this. The docking clamps locked with a metallic thud. When the door opened, Jake expected, well, he wasn't sure. A quiet return? A confused welcome? He did not expect the entire docking bay lined with crew members, clapping, cheering, some visibly stunned, all staring at the glowing heart cradled in his arms. Captain Hayes stepped forward. "Lieutenant," she said, voice steady though her eyes shone with pride. "Welcome home." Jake felt a lump rise in his throat. "Long story," he muttered. "Oh, I'm sure," she said. "And you're going to tell us every second of it." He laughed softly, shaking his head. "You won't believe half of it." Hayes smirked. "Try me." Jake looked around at his crew, his family, his people, and for the first time since stepping aboard the alien transport, the weight in his chest didn't feel like a burden. It felt like purpose. He held the heart of Zelmoth a little tighter. The galaxy had changed. He had changed. And whatever came next, new alliances, new threats, new stars waiting to be explored, Jake Morrison knew he would face it the way humans always had. Not with fear, but with fire. Because sometimes legends weren't born from destiny. Sometimes they were born from doing the right thing when nobody else would.